This is the Patriots Drive Podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Let's go!
Welcome into another edition of the Patriots Drive Podcast. Patriots traveled out to Las Vegas this past Sunday to have some joint practices with the Raiders. They had their first practice today with the Raiders. Practice yesterday, just kind of more of a walkthrough pace, just in shells. They weren't doing any hard contact or anything crazy. They saved that for the practices with the other teams. Having another practice tomorrow and then a preseason game on Friday at 8:15. They faced the Giants last week. They beat them in the preseason game. Had a couple drives there from the starters. Had some ups and downs, had some goods, had some bads. A couple positive updates, a couple negative updates on some injuries and stuff like that. But I'm here with my co-host, Jace Campbell. How's it going, Jace?
Let's get on with preseason, get to regular season. I'm sick of this crap, honestly. I was so excited for preseason, and I still am. But something about seeing Bailey Zappi and some of those guys out there for 3 quarters.
Hey, he's balling.
I'm not saying he's
balling,
but I want to see the Patriots play meaningful football and get out there against Miami week 1. But it's close. It's getting there. So I'm dang excited, and we're one step closer. And we'll recap the Panthers game that they won that we haven't talked about yet, and then the Raiders one coming up, and then any other questions that you guys have and some of the other news. There's kind of a lot of news and a lot of things circulating, especially in the last couple hours with the Patriots. So look forward to getting to some of that.
I guess I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum of you as far as the preseason goes. Like, not to start off on kind of a negative note, but the performances we're seeing from this Patriots offense, give me as many preseason games and practices as possible before the season. I'm almost scared to jump into the season with the way things are kind of being talked about right now. So I'm all right with the preseason games continuing and more practices and more time for this team to prepare and get used to this new scheme, because it seems like they've gone through their growing pains with this whole process. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited. Light Shadows, good to see you back here as well. Just kind of a quick schedule update before we hop into it. We're going to hopefully be kind of, now that it's getting to the last preseason game and then we're coming up on the regular season, we're going to start to have more of our schedule that we had last year and be more consistent. I just moved my setup, so I'll be able to go live more often, and Jason and I will have more time to do these things and put out more clips and content for you guys. So we're working out the kinks with this as well, and we're in preseason form, but we'll be to the regular season soon.
Yeah, I'm like the Patriots right now. I need as many of these shows before the season starts, before we can start doing that. But yeah, we've said that for the past month, but August was pretty busy for both of us still. But now that it's football season, we'll be able to, bring our pregame, postgame shows every week, 2 shows a week, and then hopefully clips for you guys. So make sure you guys are looking out for that. But excited to get back into another year, our second year of covering Patriots football now. And hopefully it's just as exciting as last year and maybe ends a little bit better than what we did last year in the playoffs and flake out. But I'm excited. We'll have our schedule predictions, record predictions show coming up after the 3rd preseason game. Probably once we wrap that up, we'll also have a predictions for stats, Mac Jones stats, leading receiver, kind of like what we did last year, if you guys were here for that. But we'll have all those predictions and stuff that you guys are wondering about. We'll have that video and that live stream coming out soon. So that's something you can also look forward to in the near future.
And we also might have a guest on at some point before the season. I don't know if we even talked about this before.
Some guy named Tom Brady hit us up, and he's not doing anything right now, and so
he took a hiatus from football to record actually with us. That was what it was. It wasn't the Masked Singer. It wasn't a family vacation. He came to record a couple clips for you guys here. No, but I think Pat's discuss Jacob might come on at some point before the season starts, so that'll be something you guys can look forward to as well. Just getting another Patriots fan perspective as well as our own, and going back and forth there. So we'll have some exciting stuff coming up and some things to chat about. And it's getting to the real football real quickly here. We're in the last week of the joint practices and preseason games. So it's no longer kind of this not really seeing what's going on a ton, just kind of hearing things, reading articles and watching some clips. And we're going to be getting some real live football that we'll be able to break down and see these guys play for full games and really give you guys some insight and analysis of what we're seeing.
For sure. Before we jump into our first segment, I got to say I was at the UFC fights on Saturday. So if my voice sounds like I'm losing it, it's because I did lose it and it's finally starting to come back after then. But that might be why it sounds a little funky. I was at the UFC 278 here in Utah. But anyways, let's jump right into it. Maybe one of the biggest storylines coming out of preseason game week 2, and something that a lot of Patriots fans did not want to hear. But that's going to be Taekwon Thornton, and Light Shadows already hit on it. Out 8 to 10 weeks with a collarbone injury, playing some really good football both through OTAs, camps, and the preseason games 1 and 2. So how big of an impact do you think this makes for the Patriots for their first 8 to 10 weeks while he's out? And do you think that he was actually pushing, to be a full-time rotation guy and maybe take away reps from a Nelson Aguilar or someone like that?
I really do. And if anything, I think it just I think it changes the approach that they might have to the start of the season. It seemed like Thornton was pushing to be a guy that was going to contribute his rookie season. We heard great things from him every day. He just kept improving. He was beating our corners, and our corners were locking down a good amount of people. They were performing well. Our defense was, and Taekwon was out there making plays. He was improving his route running, his technique, his speed is obviously off the charts. We already know about that. So it's super frustrating. It's super disappointing. Hopefully he's not gone too long. But as far as my point about them changing their mindset, I think they were willing to maybe have those conversations about a Nelson Aguilar, or we haven't talked about it, but a Kendrick Bourne who did amazing last year. He was quiet in training camp last year too, so I'm not putting too much stock into it, but he's had his struggles. He got benched on Friday. He got kicked out of practice for fighting. Belichick got upset with him one day for an equipment violation, and an official said something to him in a joint practice. So he's not been doing spectacular, and I just think they were willing to have those conversations. And now a report just came out that after Taekwon's injury, teams have still been calling the Patriots, and they haven't really shown any interest in those calls for trading receivers. But this is where that wide receiver depth that we've kind of touched on in the past that kind of was a hinder on this team, it comes in handy here. We got Devontae Parker, we got Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, we got a couple of younger guys stepping up as well, and then you got Kendrick Bourne if he can kind of go back to his form from last season, which I believe he will be. It's probably just some growing pains with the new offense. The offense in general is struggling. So I don't know. It's really unfortunate. You hate to see something like this happen, especially with what happened our last time we took a receiver in the first 2 rounds. N'Keal, he was out, missed the first 8 games of the season, and then what was he after that? Not much. But I have more. I feel like Taekwon has more promise. I feel like the only concern that people might have with this is, maybe this is a concern about his injuries and his size, and maybe he doesn't have the body to play in the NFL. But I have faith in Taekwon's ability. The availability is just going to be the thing, and hopefully he can bounce back from this injury and then have a long, healthy career, and we don't have to worry about stuff like this. But his impact, I think he was going to make a bigger impact this season than people thought. When we first talked about it, we didn't think he was going to play it all this year, and he just continued to prove people wrong and continue to grow and impress.
Yeah, and the 2 knocks I had on him coming out was route running abilities and size, and if he's going to be able to hold up. Now, I think his route running ability he's proven it. Like, a lot of his stuff comes from his speed, and that's great, and he can run vertically, he can sink his hips and get in and out of breaks. I think he's proven that he's a good enough route runner to play in the NFL. But when it comes to size, when you're 6'2", 181, and I posted a thing on my story, and I wasn't being serious, but someone posted a picture of him being interviewed, and he looked like the Applejack cinnamon stick. Like, he is skinny and he is long, and
he is really small.
It's just, he's getting hit by some big dudes, both at linebacker. There's big corner or big safeties out there. And I just wonder what his durability is and how he's going to handle taking all those hits in the NFL. So this sucks to see. I agree with you. I think that it would have been there would have been a chance that Nelson Aguilar got moved because of the contract he's on and him only being 1 year. If Taekwon Thornton was going to all of a sudden be, wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 or 3 or something. And New England had a ton of faith in him week 1, but now we might not even see him till week 7 or 8. So I don't know. I hope that they don't make any receiver moves now. If you were to move or Nelson Aguilar, you're looking real thin. And LaJordan Humphrey looked good. There's been other guys that have looked good. Christian Wilkerson, whoever. makes the 53-man roster, but those guys aren't going to make up, or those guys aren't going to do any better than Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, if you were to trade them. So I think that this puts New England in kind of a tough situation with Taekwon Thornton's injury right here, where you might have been looking to move someone and free some cap space and get a guy off the books, but you're not doing that anymore. And especially, with the tough first half of the schedule, you have our first 4 games, 3 of them on the road, things like that, where you're playing good teams and you got to have some receiving threats for Mac to throw the ball to. And you don't have your top rookie now.
Yeah. And the Patriots are still kind of looking to move money, which we'll touch on in a minute. But I just think that we'll touch on this from Mike real quick. I just think that 8 to 10 weeks, when you look at that, some people might think 8 to 10 weeks of the season. That's not necessarily what it means, kind of 8 to 10 weeks from now. So 8 weeks, Mike says here is week 5, which I believe is the Lions game. Yeah. So that if he heals in 8 weeks, that seems like a pretty soft landing spot for him. I think they play the Lions and they have a couple other teams, Cleveland maybe, and
Cleveland week 6, Chicago. Which is Monday Night Football Chicago, or are they Bears? Sunday Night Football? Yeah, the Bears. That's gonna. I
know it's a prime time. I can't remember which one.
It's Monday night. I'm looking at it
Monday?
Right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be week 6, Monday Night Football.
And then I know they play the Colts not long after that. But so there's a couple spots there that would be solid teams for him to start against for the first time, get his feet wet and start to kind of be integrated back into this offense. But it just stinks that he was on such a roll. Every day you heard better and better reports about him. He was kind of one of our most consistent offensive players as a rookie, which was awesome. So I don't know. I hope it doesn't stunt his development, stunt his growth, and I hope he can continue. I hope he can start off right where he left off before this injury, because he was opening a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying week 7 or 8 is because if Taekwon Thornton takes 8 weeks to heal, you think he's going to be ready 1 week of practice right into the season?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Exactly.
So, okay, he's ready week 5. Maybe he suits up week 6. What's he going to be? Is he going to be 100%? No. He hasn't practiced for 8 weeks. He's coming off a collarbone injury. He's going to have to get back into the system, the conditioning, all that stuff. So he might not be contributing till 2 weeks after he's like healed. And that's because you got to go through all the practice things. You got to be cleared and stuff. So I wouldn't, if it was week 5, that'd be awesome. That would be incredible. But I'm just hard pressed to think that he's going to be ready to go 100% contributing on this football team in 8 weeks. I just don't see that happening. So that's where I'm getting the weeks 6, 7. You're looking at the Bears game, possibly one of the other ones.
The
after
Jets
that.
week 8, Colts week 9, and then a bye week.
Bye 10.
So I think probably that Bears Jets week somewhere in there is a realistic goal to set for him. You don't want to rush him back too quick and have him get re-injured. You want to make sure he's 100% healthy and has time to get acclimated in the system and kind of find a groove. That's what's tough, is like when it's halfway through a season, like especially with the Patriots, that's where they usually are finding their groove and figuring themselves out. Like the first month of the season, they're always not great, but they always continue to get better throughout the year and they build for the playoffs. And if you're halfway through a season and then you're throwing this rookie wide receiver in there, it's like, okay, how much can you expect him to just be thrown in there and have chemistry as much as these other guys who've been playing with Mac for 8 weeks plus all of training camp and all that? So that's just what I'm frustrated about. It stinks that he's going to have this to worry about his rookie year. And there's already comparisons of N'Keal. Oh, this guy's injured now too. Is he going to be another bust wide receiver for the Patriots? And I just don't want his first year to be crappy. And then people say, oh, well, we got N'Keal 2.0. We got another bust wide receiver. And then he's going to have all the pressure on him. It's unfortunate. It is really unfortunate. If you want to look at the positive side, depth wise, there's not many positions on the field that we have more depth at than wide receiver right now. And losing your second round rookie wide receiver is not as big of a deal as some of these other injuries we've seen in the past. And Edelman tearing his ACL in the preseason, like that's not what happened here. So is it disappointing? Does it suck? Yes, it's football. Stuff happens though. And at the end of the day, it could always be worse.
Yeah. And you got Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Ty Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson. Like there's plenty of people that can still shoulder the load of, catching passes from Mac Jones and be able to do things. But the speed that Taekwon Thornton has and the leaps we are seeing him make in training camp is why this sucks so bad, is because his potential with him being a second round pick this year and being young, his potential might be higher than most of those guys. Like, you look at the future, it's probably Taekwon Thornton over Nelson Aguilar. So you want to see Taekwon Thornton out there. A lot of Patriots fans do. That's not going to happen. So that's what's frustrating about this is you see a guy succeed, do a ton of great things in camp. You want to see him make an immediate impact, and then you get derailed like this. And you've been seeing a lot of receivers in the preseason games on a lot of other teams. I think this is a very good rookie wide receiver class. There were a lot of guys that have been doing a lot of good things in preseason games. So it would be nice to have our rookie there and, get him rotational, like you mentioned, and then have him, feel 100% ready to go by week 6, saying he doesn't have an injury. But now that he's probably going to miss until week 6 or 7, who knows when this dude's ready? And Mike said it right here. He might not be ready to off the bye. It would not surprise me if Bill Belichick and the staff just all of a sudden is like, yeah, we'll shut you down until after the bye. That will give you 7 games after that. And then you'll be able to, if we make the playoffs, you'll be able to play. But that wouldn't surprise me at all either. We've seen the Patriots do stuff like that.
Yeah. That would be a classic Belichick thing where we say, oh, he could be ready as soon as week 4, and then it's week 11, and we're like, oh, now he's just starting. That'd be so frustrating, though. I don't want to waste a full year of this kid's development, but I don't know. Bill has his reasons for things. Let's see. Let's touch on this Ronnie Perkins thing real quick while we're kind of talking about wasting seasons. Ronnie Perkins placed on injured reserve. 2nd year in a row, he's going to miss the entire season. 3rd round pick. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't really know what to say. A lot of people had hope that Ronnie Perkins would be the guy that stepped up on the edge. Turns out it's Anthony Jennings and maybe a little bit Josh Uche, but Perkins, a 3rd round pick with the Patriots, you can't hit home runs on them all. Mac Jones and Barmore were home runs, and then Ramondre not long after. But Perkins has not had a single snap on defense for the Patriots in his first 2 seasons due to injury. And I don't really know if this is a real injury type thing or if this is just a Patriots putting you on IR you're not going to contribute this year. We're going to give you another year to develop and go from there next season.
Yeah, they had to make 2 moves to get their roster down to 80, and this is one of them. And it comes as a shocker because this is a guy that I remember thinking like, hey, well, who can come in and help Matt Judon create pressure off the edge? And I was like, well, Ronnie Perkins. He was a guy that probably should have went higher than the 3rd round if he was fully healthy at Oklahoma. Again, Bill Belichick finds a guy that slips, that has it all athletically. But again, you're going to get 2 years, 32 straight games that he has not played football. And we're talking about Taekwon Thornton coming off an injury in 8 to 10 weeks. This dude's not going to have played football for 2 years. And yeah, he's gotten a couple snaps here and there, but he's not going to have played in a meaningful game.
Live action.
What does his career look like after this year when he comes back? And I just think you see it too often where you see this instance happen and the Patriots just end up cutting him. They don't, want to waste time with guys like this. So this sucks because I had a lot of high hopes for Ronnie Perkins. I thought he was going to be a big time contributor for this defense and someone that could really, make an impact beside Matt Judon on situational downs, but not this year at least. And, who knows for the future.
And I mean, heading into camp, I had high hopes for him, but then as camp went on and you hear reports, I thought it was kind of going to be more of a Chase Winovich type situation, but Perkins hasn't even played. Like, Winovich at least had some snaps where he showed flashes of stuff and you could trade him for something, but Perkins hasn't even been on the field. So it's like, how is a team really going to trade for him if they haven't even seen him since college? And it's like, what are you going to get back? They're just going to cut him. But I guess IR is what they thought was going to be the best solution for now. So it's unfortunate. I had hopes for him as well, but I guess as long as somebody's stepping up, I guess it doesn't really matter who it is, but it's tough to see a guy that we felt like was kind of a steal at where he fell to. And then he hasn't gotten any playing time. I don't know if he hasn't taken advantage of his opportunities or what, but clearly something's not meshing there with Perkins and this defense.
Yeah, he had 5 total pressures in his first 2 preseason games on 57 snaps, and he recorded a sack. So, not like outstanding numbers, but showed flashes. And then again, it's preseason. But yeah, I agree with you on the Chase Winovich situation where this guy coming out of college had a lot of high hopes, except he hasn't shown it on the field. And that's what sucks is you got something out of Chase Winovich. If you're looking to trade Ronnie Perkins right now, I don't even know if there's a market for him. There's going to be a ton of other players that teams would rather give a chance to, or that teams would give a chance to over Perkins since he's been hurt for now 2 years and he's not even going to be able to play this year. So that's a bummer situation for the Patriots defense. And something that now you'll kind of have to monitor and say, well, who's going to be the guy besides Matt Judon? Because we thought it was Uche last year, and kind of the same thing as this year is he's having a good preseason, but he was unplayable on run situations last year. So what's that going to translate into this year? Is he going to be able to, stay on the field for those downs, or is he just going to be a pass rush only guy? Is Anthony Jennings really the answer? Like, I would love it if he was a guy that could come in and make a huge leap this year, but is he really going to, be the other dude that can contribute behind across from Matt Judon and, take some of the load off him? I don't know. So this is a big blow. We're already looking at there to be like a little committee at that other outside linebacker spot, edge rusher, other than Judon. And now you're losing another guy that a lot of Patriots fans were excited to see this year.
Anthony Jennings is an interesting one. I think this is where some of Belichick's stuff that makes people angry paid off. Like last year, Anthony Jennings wasn't prepared enough, in shape enough, whatever, to Belichick standards at camp. He said, yeah, you're done for the year. I don't care. And Anthony Jennings had a full year to sit on that and say, wow, like, I think that's kind of a reality check of like, okay, this isn't like, you got to take this serious. And it looks like he came into camp in great shape, ready to play, ready to contribute, working hard, and it's paid off. You see, you work hard, you improve, you do the things you need to do, and you're going to get opportunities in this defense and on this team. And he's made the most of it so far. So I hope he's the answer. We need a guy. We had talked about it all offseason. That's why we're interested in a guy like Trey Flowers who could stop the run on the edge and be a guy to take some pressure off of Matt Judon, because towards the end of the year, Judon was silent because they could just double him and they didn't have to worry about anybody else. So we'll touch on the defensive line in a little bit, but so far they've looked good, and Anthony Jennings has been a big piece of that, and same with Josh Uche. But like you mentioned, Uche, liability on running down, so it's a guy that you can't really have on the field all the time. So somebody's going to have to be there on that backside, whether it's Anthony Jennings, whether Henry Anderson slides over to the outside a little bit on running downs or something. That they got to figure out something to have a solid defense that can stop the run and the pass and be versatile. So that's going to be interesting to see how that ends up playing out. But as of right now, it looks like Anthony Jennings.
Yeah. And if he can come in and he was motivated off of that, that's great, because he was another 3rd round pick for New England back in 2020 out of Alabama. And you haven't heard or seen much of him on the field. So if he's finally coming into shape, into, his mold right here. And I agree with what Mike said. They had him playing inside linebacker his rookie year. Way out of position. He needs to have his hand in the ground, be coming off the edge, playing more of an outside linebacker, 4-3 defensive end type of guy. So I'm excited to see. I hope he continues there, because the last half of the season last year with Matt Judon and how much double teams he got and kind of the decline that we saw, we can't have that again this year. We already don't have a great pass rush. And I have high hopes for Barmore. I think that we're going to get a little bit more pressure from some of our linebackers on blitzes, maybe even our safeties. But you got to get, you got to be able to get pressure with 4 guys, maybe even 3 on drop 8 situations and obvious pass downs. And if this is a guy outside of Judon, it's going to make it, a lot easier for the Patriots to hold up, play some zone, mix up their looks in man or zone coverage. And quite frankly, you saw when the Bills and the Chiefs looked at their most vulnerable, it's when teams could just sit in cover 2 and they could get home with 4 guys, and you could just pass everything off, maybe play 2-man and have a spy on the quarterback. So if you can do that and consistently get home with 4, it makes playing defense a lot easier in the NFL and in any level of football.
And as Flores says here, worried about the corners. Our defense is gonna. The success of our defense is going to rely on our defensive line's ability to consistently create pressure. And our corners, like we talked about, like, have they been doing great so far? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, are you going to rely on Jalen Mills to cover Devontae Adams one-on-one? Or are you going to rely on anybody in the secondary to cover Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like, there's so many good receivers. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. There's so much stuff on Diggs. There's so many good receivers on our schedule. The D line is going to have to be great this year. They really are. They're going to have to create pressure consistently and allow our corners to have to cover for less time, because like you said, the amount of pressure you can create, if you can create pressure consistently and quickly, it speeds up the process for the quarterback, makes it a lot easier on your corners and DBs and everybody on the defense. So the success of this team is no longer going to be, oh, we got Stephon Gilmore, he's going to shut down their number one, and then we'll have coverage sacks. Nope, it's going to be, we need to get some sacks to help out our coverage. So it's kind of going to be flipped from what we're used to. But let's touch on a couple. Let's hit on a couple of these real quick. We'll do kind of semi rapid fire. Light Shadows has a few questions here. Let's see where to go. I wanted to ask a question. What do you think is more likely? The Patriots are going to win 10 games or more, or lose 10 games or more this year?
I think that it's more likely that they win 10 games. I don't see 10 losses on the schedule. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't slip up, but I had this pulled up and I was actually doing this today. So let me pull up the graphic that I have. But I just don't see 10 losses on the schedule. Like, you already know that the Patriots are going to get 1 or 2 games that they probably should have on paper. The Ravens is a team that New England always seems to beat somehow. And it's the first home game for New England, week 3. And Bill just seems to have the Ravens number, especially in Foxborough. Now, if Cleveland's having Deshaun Watson play, which he won't be, then that's a lot tougher game. But I don't have any doubts that we can't beat Cleveland. We beat them last year, and then I think that they were better with Baker. The Lions, the Bears, the Jets, who knows what the Zach Wilson situation is going to be. Yeah, he'll be healthy by then, but is he going to make that leap that everyone said he's going to make? Now, there's tough games. We have to play Indianapolis again. We have to play Buffalo twice, obviously, and then, the stretch of Cincinnati and then Vegas and the Cardinals is always tough, especially on primetime. But right now, I don't see 10 losses on the books. I just don't. I see 10 wins if everything goes good for New England, but I don't see 10 losses. That's why I'm shooting, right at about 9-8, maybe 8-9 if there's one game that New England slips up on, but I just don't see New England being a double-digit loss team this year.
I don't see them being either. I'm going to say 10 wins is more likely than 10 losses, but I will say that number has shifted drastically in the past month, because I'm starting to get concerned about this offense and the way they're looking right now, how out of sorts they are. If they don't get this fixed soon, they could have some losses at the beginning of the year, that they could have a slow start like last season where they got to rip off 7 in a row to have a good record. And you can't rely on that every year. So I'm staying with the 10 wins as more likely, but I'm definitely leaned a little bit to I can kind of see that if they start off slow and they lose a couple they maybe shouldn't have or whatever, they lose another close one of the Colts, who got a little better probably with Matt Ryan. Pittman's taking another jump. He's been better. So I don't really see either, but I'm going to lean the 10 wins for now. But I will say I'm definitely a little bit concerned.
Yeah, and I think that this is a good question to ask right here too. We talked about lack of play callers and as well as a weak secondary. The play caller one is something that will play out. I've actually been really impressed with our secondary, a lot more impressed than I thought I would be. I think Terrence Mitchell's played well. Jalen Mills has played well, moving Jonathan Jones outside and Marcus Jones being the slot corner. I think that we have guys that are capable. Now, that doesn't mean that we have a JC Jackson type of dude, and it still worries me playing Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, guys like that throughout the season. But I've actually shifted to, I still think the secondary is a weak spot of the team, but I'm not as worried about them as I was nearly, a month ago going into the season. Coming through and hearing some of the reports and watching some of the guys play, I think Bill has the secondary ready to go. They're taking the ball away. Hopefully Sean Wade contributes. He had a pick. You saw Terrence Mitchell in preseason game 1 have a forced fumble. Obviously, the loss of Malcolm Butler.
Joshua Bledsoe had a forced fumble too.
Yeah. the loss of Malcolm Butler hurts the depth rotation, but I wasn't expecting major things out of him. So now you just get a Jack Jones, Sean Wade, one of those guys that's unproven and someone that we have a lot of hope for and expectations for on the field a little sooner. So I'm actually not as worried about the secondary as I thought I would be going into the season after these first two preseason games.
I feel better about the secondary, but I feel way worse about the O-line, and I feel worse about the offense in general. I thought this scheme was going to pick up quicker than it has. And we'll touch on this in more detail in a minute, but let's answer one more quick question from Light Shadows, and then we'll get into our other concerns. Which of the running backs do you think will be our new James White, and do you think we can really find someone to be a dynamic pass-catching back that we can rely on to move the chains?
This is interesting because we talked about what running backs were going to make the Patriots roster in our last live episode. And we were, going back and forth. Is James White going to start on IR? Is he going to be healthy? Obviously, he retires. So now that opens up a roster spot. But I personally, I think Ramondre is going to shoulder a lot of the work because he's the most capable and he has the highest potential. So if you're telling me you got a two-headed monster of Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, just like we did last year, and I think both of them have only gotten better, especially Ramondre, I'm super happy with that. I personally want to see Pierre Strong in there. I love JJ Taylor, and I think he does a lot of things good, but I just don't think he's the future. I think that if you're talking to me, get Pierre Strong in there. Let him run a couple pass routes. Now he has to improve on his pass blocking. But James White was, every time he was in, people knew that he was going to be able to run a route and probably get open. So I'd say, just to take some of the workload off of Ramondre, because he's not only going to be a pass catching back, he's going to be running the ball a lot for the Patriots. Put Pierre Strong in there. Let him with his ability to catch or make people miss after contact, yards after contact, his speed that he has, acceleration, quickness. Let him get the ball in open space and then see what happens with that. And maybe that opens up the run game for him. He gets a little confidence in the NFL and he can make some plays. So for me, the most likely one to see an increase in targets is Ramondre Stevenson, but who I want to see, come in and kind of have more of a role that they probably wouldn't have with James White playing is Pierre Strong. I don't see, the benefit of giving JJ Taylor a ton of pass catches this year over a Pierre Strong type of guy that's going to be here for the long haul.
My short-term pick is Ty Montgomery. I just think he's going to be the guy that's going to step in, kind of fill those shoes of James White. Is he going to be James White? No. But I think we've heard a lot of good things about Ty Montgomery so far. I think he's going to step in short-term, and he's going to mix in with a guy like Ramondre. I think Ramondre is going to get a lot more third down looks than he did last year. And the good thing about Ramondre is he's such a good back as far as running the ball. So his capabilities on third down is, we don't know if you're running or passing because he can kind of do both. So long-term, I think Ramondre and then, like you said, Pierre Strong, I think those two are going to be good options down the road. But as far as this season goes, I think Ty Montgomery might shoulder a good amount of the load and then have Ramondre and Damian be kind of first and second down backs, and then Ramondre switching out with Montgomery for that third down back every once in a while.
Yeah, and I that's a great answer. I think Montgomery is going to be the Swiss Army knife this year. He's probably going to line up, and I guess when I was thinking James White, I'm thinking of like a pass catching back out of the backfield, which Ty Montgomery can do. But I think if you're just going to line up on third down like you saw with James White and put him out and empty, I would definitely say it's going to be Ty Montgomery because the amount of snaps that he's had and experience he's had, both catching the ball as a running back, as a receiver, lining up in multiple positions. So, yeah, I agree with you. If you're talking about a running back that's going to come in and have a ton of catches and be able to do a lot of different things like James White did on third down, I didn't even think of Ty Montgomery. He's a great pick, but you're talking about maybe a guy that's going to be able to, because I feel like with James White, when he got in the game, I don't know the exact stat, but the majority of the time it was pass. Now, if you put Ramondre Stevenson in the backfield, is it going to be run or pass? You never know. So I'm not against putting Ty Montgomery in the backfield and throwing it to him. But if you want to make it a little bit harder on the defense to anticipate what's coming, put Ramondre Stevenson back there and run it with him a couple times, then leave him in the pass block, and then the next time sneak him out on a pass route. Hopefully someone loses his eyes and let him go. If Ty Montgomery's in there, I don't know how much of a running threat he is, although he's had a pretty good preseason running the ball, but he's not going to be, demanding a ton of bodies in the box like Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, guys like that. So yeah, Ty Montgomery catching a lot of passes in a lot of different positions this year. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. I think he'll be I think he'll be a lot better than people were expecting when we made the signing. Like when we made the signing, it was like, okay, whatever. Like I think that was a time where we were getting frustrated about them not signing anybody, and this was like that was their signing. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, really? But let's move into the joint practices from today, and then kind of touch on our feelings with this team in general, and we can kind of preview that the Raiders game. But um, today was not great as far as the practice goes with the Raiders. It was hot. Um, as far as the secondary goes, Devontae Adams torched our secondary all day. I think Jalen Mills went 0 for 3 in 1-on-1s, which it's Devontae Adams. Like what most corners are going to go 1 for 3, 0 for 3 against him. He's the best in the league, especially he's a big body X receiver. Like that's tough 1-on-1. Good luck. So that was tough. He was torching all throughout 11s, throughout 1-on-1s, whatever he was doing until finally, I think it was the last period, like the 2-minute drill for the Patriots defense. They broke up a couple. Hunter Renfrow had a good day too for the Raiders. He was a pain for guys to cover. One of the best receivers in the NFL. I mean, he's such a good guy out of the slot. I think it was Derwin James who mentioned recently, I think it was on the I Am Athlete podcast, mentioned his top receivers in the NFL include like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and then he put Hunter Renfrow up there with those guys. It's like, wow. So
Hunter Renfrow's probably Julian Edelman in the NFL right now. Like he's a tough cover. He runs great routes and he is very hard to, stay with. So I agree. He's a tough guy to cover.
I was so upset seeing him get an extension with the Raiders. I was like, he would be perfect here. He would just be Jules 2.0. Like he would have been so great in our like old offense. So McDaniels is going to have a lot of fun using him along with Devontae Adams and Darren Waller, which is ridiculous that they have that, and Josh Jacobs. It's absurd, but it was tough. The Raiders were better on defense and offense. The Patriots offense was horrendous. The offensive line is becoming a huge concern of mine. They can't get anything together. And you see David Andrews starting to get pretty frustrated with what's going on. They can't figure it out. I don't know if it's miscommunication. I don't know what it is, but the run game can't get going. The pass game can't get going. They had so many run stuff, incomplete pass, drop pass, run stuff, a short catch for 5 yards. Like it was that. Like that was most of the tweets that were coming out. And then finally, the final drive of the day, a 2-minute drill, the Patriots went down the field, their best drive of the day, and scored a touchdown. And I think it was to Kendrick Bourne, maybe. So that was good. But at the end of the day, this offense has been so inconsistent. And even going back to just the little we saw against the Giants backups in the preseason game, 3 drives, 2 3-and-outs, and one of them you had to rely on a 45-yard pass to Aguilar on 3rd down to get the first down. So I'm getting concerned. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're going to have this offense firing on all cylinders before the season starts. It starts in 2-3 weeks, and this is how inconsistent they're being. This is how much they're struggling. I get the Raiders are an upgrade from the Giants, and then it was the Panthers last week. Sorry, I keep saying the Giants. I don't know why. Panthers last week, but the Panthers had good players too. They got Brian Burns. They got a couple high draft picks on that front seven, and the Raiders have Max Crosby. They have Chandler Jones. They got some really talented guys on that D line as well, but this offensive line should not be struggling this much. And the fact that they are is really concerning because it all starts up front. If they can't get their shit together, this offense isn't going to have anything together. So it starts up front, and the inconsistency from day to day. And they've been consistent, but they've been consistently bad. They can't string good days together or good drives together multiple in a row.
Yeah, that's probably the storyline of camp for me is how great our offensive line was last year. And obviously you knew you'd be taking a step back, losing both Ted Karras and Shaq Mason. So you weren't expecting it to be a top 5 in the league, just like we were last year. But with David Andrews, and I know Trent Brown, I don't even think he's played a snap in a preseason game right now. He's probably practicing in joint practices, but he's not doing anything in the preseason game. So it's concerning. Like, you got a second year quarterback that has no OC. He's looking to make a second year jump, and now his offensive line struggling. And what was a strength last year in the run game, you can't even get knockback, and you can't even, you make holes for our backs to get through, and you're relying on them to make guys miss to get 3 yards. Even usually you want to make the second level of defenders miss, possibly the safeties, and then you're getting 20-yard gains, but you're having guys in your face right off the snap. So it's concerning. Now I think that they're going to get it together a lot more than what it is now. I don't know what it is, and if it's Matt Patricia, if it's Joe Judge, whoever it is, I don't know, because you heard high praise from Trent Brown about Patricia, saying that seeing it from a defensive perspective has helped him. And Mac Jones said it the other day, Matt Patricia is one of the most brilliant minds in football, but it's just not translating to the field. And I don't know. Maybe it comes in. You got a rookie left guard that was your first round pick in Cole Strange. Michael Owenu, who is played really good football at right tackle, is now your right guard. And he was really only in select packages last year. So he's kind of making a position change too, from where he was his best. And then we all know the struggles with Isaiah Wynn. And it sounds like that, who has it that's been playing a little more than him? Yeah, Yodny Kajust. So the right tackle spot's going to be a concern no matter who's there. I don't think Kajust is, the answer either. I don't think he's going to come in and play a lot better than Isaiah Wynn did. So there's concerns along the offensive line. I hope that they get it together, because it's going to be a long season if Mac is getting constant pressure in his face. And we all know that he's willing to stand in there and take the hits and deliver it. We saw it in the Bucs game last year. We saw it in the Saints game. Well, you don't want your second-year quarterback taking a beating like that. So that's got to be a huge concern for me and a lot of Patriots fans.
In my opinion, there's no reason our offense shouldn't be better than our defense. You look at what we have on the offense side of the ball compared to the defense. Like, defensively, yeah, we have Matt Judon. Yeah, we got Christian Barmore. We got a couple of vets who are good in there. We got Devin McCourty. We got Duggar. We got some talent, but on the offense, we got Mac Jones, we got Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, Taekwon Thornton, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick. Like, we got a bunch of really good players, and there's no reason this offense should not be really solid this year. I'd say better than that. They were, in terms of, I think it was points and like efficiency on offense last year, they were like a top 10 offense in the NFL. I don't see why you can't be better than you were last year. Like, there's no reason in my mind that you shouldn't be. So that's what's been so frustrating, is it's like, we got the pieces, we got the talent. It's just they're not putting it together. And I don't know if it's the lack of a good O-line coach, the OC. I don't know what's going on, but they got to figure it out, because this offensive line has been horrendous, and it's really holding this team back so far. Like you mentioned, Yodny, he has been better than Isaiah Wynn so far this preseason. But at the end of the day, you got Mike Onwenu playing kind of out of position for what he's been better at tackle than guard in the NFL so far. That's just a fact. He has been. Isaiah Wynn, there's been talks about trading him, but then, okay, you trade him, then what? So Yodny starts at right tackle. Yodny has a huge injury history. Say he gets hurt. Okay, Haran's in there. He has a big injury history too, and he's not great. He's been struggling a lot this offseason so far, or this training camp. So there's not a lot of great. Then you say, oh, Onwenu, swing him to right tackle. Okay, guard depth on this team is bad. Real bad. I think it was maybe like, was it Hajj Froholds or something like that would be the next guy to step in at right guard, or I don't even know. I can't even remember the player's name who would be stepping in at right guard there. So it's tough. There's not a lot of good situations of, oh, trade Isaiah Wynn. Yes, that would get his money off the books. That'd be great. But at the end of the day, you just need him to step up, and you need guys to be healthy if you want this offensive line to be good. But they just need to figure it out with these starters, and then worry about the health and the depth later. But it hasn't been clicking. For whatever reason, it hasn't. But it definitely concerns me about this team. Already starts slow in the beginning of the season. I don't know how they're going to start now with all this going on. I'm worried there's going to be panic early. I'm worried guys are going to get discouraged and not have belief in the offensive system, and they're going to not have the buy-in. And I'm getting worried. This is starting to make me nervous. We tried not to panic early, but it's not early anymore. So it's like, okay, well, it's still not really together. What's going on here? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if you move Owenu to right tackle, which I'm not against, you can put it would
Or
be
Hambright? Right?
well, you would have gosh, sorry, I was looking at William Sherman is a backup guard. James Ferentz, Arrington Hambright,
That's what I was thinking.
Drew DeJaris, not even sure. Chasen Hines, who they drafted, Bill Murray, but that's the thing is, so move him to right tackle, Owenu, because that's where he played. Who do you feel comfortable with now at right guard? Like William Sherman, he hasn't played anything for New England. Now, do you move again Isaiah Wynn into right guard? No, that's not going to solve anything. Now, if they would have done that from day one in the regular season, maybe that's the answer, or in the preseason, maybe that's the answer. But you just wasted a whole month of practices where you had this whole starting line, and now you're going to make a switch. You think it's going to work? Look at the teams that had injury problems both last year and the year before on the offensive line, and look at all the different combinations they played with, and go look at their record. Like, you can't be shuffling your offensive line every game. It's just it's a recipe for disaster for your team, for your quarterback, your offense. That's not something you want to be doing. So yeah, you just got to hope that they figure this out, and it's a lot better than what it's looking like, which I think it will be. I don't think it's a lack of talent. I don't know if it's coaching. That's what's interesting. I don't believe that David Andrews has regressed that much. I don't believe that Trent Brown is, not a top 5, maybe top 7 tackle in the league. I don't believe that Cole Strange can't do it. Now, is he going to have his struggles? Yes. And I think that hopefully he'll work it out and he'll be a good addition for the offensive line. It still doesn't justify the first round pick, but I think he'll be able to do it. And we all know Michael Wynn, who has the talent. It's just, does he fit at right guard? So I don't think it's a lack of talent. I think maybe it's chemistry. You got to think of it. You got more than half of your starting. Actually, sorry, you got 4 of your starting offensive linemen right now that are new or in a different position, because Trent Brown was at right tackle, Isaiah Wynn was at left tackle, and both your guards are gone. So the only guy that's playing the same position as last year is David Andrews. So it's going to take some time, and I agree with you. It's too early to panic, but this is something that you got to be watching if you want New England to have a winning season this year, or make a playoff push or something, because this is the one thing in the NFL that it's hard to win with a continually injured or shuffling or offensive line that just cannot figure it out, and you're just plug and playing guy. You can't plug and play offensive linemen in the NFL. It's one of the most important positions other than quarterback, and they're the ones that protect your quarterback. So
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's a lack of talent. Like you just listed off, the guys we got are talented. Like Isaiah Wynn's a starting caliber tackle when he's healthy. His best year, he was actually a really solid tackle. He's had his injury concerns and he's been up and down, but I don't know. I don't think it's at all a lack of talent. I just think this is a new scheme and it's so different. Like the zone blocking scheme is so different from what they've done in the past that these guys are trying to get used to it. And you almost the only guy that's really meant for that is a guy we just drafted in Cole Strange. So it's almost like your rookie O lineman is the one who's built for the system you want to run, but everybody else isn't. So it's kind of like it's not meshing. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's just a new scheme. I'm not sure what the deal is, but it's certainly a concern. And I don't know. It's tough. Just remember how Mac looked the first 4 games of the season when the O line was struggling. Yeah, I mean, and then we started off the year 2-4. When the O line was in shambles. It was tough with Trent Brown out and all that stuff. But good point by Mike here. Can't get a fair judgment on what Strong and Kevin Harris can do due to the O line. Yeah, like last year we got a great look at Ramondre in the preseason because our O line was good and they were doing their job. So it's hard to evaluate these guys. I'm surprised we've seen as much as we have from Taekwon Thornton with how bad the offensive line has been. Imagine if this O-line was good and Mac had more time and felt like he could sit in the pocket. He's got to rush everything. When you have no time back there, your internal clock is just faster and you're panicking more and you don't feel as comfortable. You can't get into a rhythm like you can when you have time and you're confident in your O-line. So it's tough. It's not a great situation. They got to figure it out. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Light Shadows thinks it's not too early to panic. I'm panicking a little bit. I'm starting to get to that point just because it's late in the preseason and the season starts in a couple weeks and you start off with Miami, a division game. So Their defense is good. Their defense is really good. They got a good D line, some young, speedy talent in that front seven. So you're gonna have a good test early, but right now they got a good test in the Raiders, and if they can kind of clean things up, this is a great opportunity for them to figure it out against a really good defensive line.
Yeah, and the reason I think it's too early to panic is the Patriots were 2-4 last year in their first 6 games, and 3 of their 4 losses coming at home. And what happened after that? Like the NFL, you can flip the script of an NFL game, an NFL season in a 5-game stretch. And we saw it last year with New England, where if we would have panicked after week 6 after the Cowboys game and just, let's write the season off, we wouldn't have gone on that huge win streak. And then obviously it ended, really bad for the Patriots where they were struggling towards the end of the season and then obviously, get blown out of the playoff game. But it's an 18-game season. Or 18-week season. So you got 17 games to play in a bye week. There is a lot that can happen. And I think that it's something that you look at and you say, hey, if this isn't fixed by week 10, then yeah, this sucks. Now, I'm not saying that we can't be sitting here as Patriots fans and be like, what are we worried about going into the season? We should be saying that. And we should be saying that about the offensive line. But there's no need to sit here and be like, we are going to lose the season because the New England Patriots have had 3 horrible preseason games at offensive line and a ton of joint practices and a lot of struggle on the offensive line. Now, if that's still the case by week 10, then yeah, but we never know what's going to happen. I mean, maybe they look horrible the first 3 games and then they pick it up weeks 4, 5, and 6. The Patriots offensive line last year was horrible through 9 games without Trent Brown. And he came back and then they were one of the best in the NFL. So I think that it takes time for things like this to, write themselves out, and only time will tell what the true thing is. And, if this is a huge concern for the Patriots, but right now it's looking like something that possibly could be one of those things you look back on the air and say, what went wrong? Well, we couldn't protect Mac Jones and we could not run the ball effectively. So it could be a thing to panic about, but I'm not a big fan of, panicking in going into preseason game 3 or regular season game 1 when you got 17 more football games that mean something. So that's my opinion on that.
I don't know if it's Bravis or Bravis or how you say this, but he says, I feel like if Bill gave the starting offense more than 2 drives in a preseason game together, they'd perform better. So that's what's confusing to me is in 2 preseason games, the offensive line and the starters, all 5 starters haven't played together for a single snap, but some of the starters have played a total of 12 snaps in 2 games.
Yeah.
Like you had 2 3 and outs and then 1 drive that was solid for a touchdown. But like, so I don't know if this is a Belichick saying, hey, we're not going to unleash our zone offense and let Miami know what we're doing week 1 until week 1. So I don't know if it's a kind of that thing or if it's a health, but you'd think that you'd want to get these guys as many reps as possible in this new offense if they're playing this poorly. So I understand you got to keep your guys healthy, but geez, at least give these guys some reps. I know you're doing it during the week. I don't know. I feel like we should be seeing them more often if they're really struggling as bad as everybody says, which they clearly are.
Yeah. Game reps, even though it's preseason, it's real. It's live football. You're not going against your teammates. It's not a controlled environment. So even preseason games, I agree. I would like to see New England come out and play their starters for at least a quarter. I don't want to see them play the whole first half because we don't need any more injuries like Taekwon Thornton, but I want to see Bill come out and give them, 3, 4 drives in the first quarter and see what they're all about. See if they can figure this out. Maybe it's just a rep thing where, once they get a couple more drives under their belts with each other, it starts clicking and, they're in an actual game and they're not playing against their teammates and stuff. So maybe that's all it takes, and we'll figure that out. But I agree with you. I've never been a fan of, sitting your guys for preseason games. I get why they do it, but I think that when you got a team like New England that has a lot to prove, you got to get guys reps, and it's got to come any way possible. You can't be, putting guys out there week 1, 2, and 3 and have that being their first meaningful rep. And now all of a sudden you wasted those weeks because everyone was learning and now they're finally ready to go week 4. And now you're 1 and 2 or 0 and 3 or something like that. So I agree.
Yeah, and the thing that's tough is like the starting offense did play one quarter this past preseason game, but they had 2 3 and outs and one drive. So it was like it didn't feel like a full quarter because
Yeah.
you had 6 plays in your
6
first 2
plays and 2
drives.
drives, yeah.
So it's tough. It's like, God. So you're out there for a quarter total, but it's like you were out there for probably 3 minutes total out of the 15. So they just got to be more consistent and have a couple real actual drives to where they can show some things, they can do some things and get some real live action. Like people on the Patriots, I think it was Jacoby Myers and Mack and all them were talking about why they struggled the first few times. They were like, well, this is our first time real game live action. It's good to get back out there, get our feet wet and get ready for the regular season. So it's like, just give them a quarter a game. Like, whatever. That's not anything crazy. I understand injuries, but when they're struggling this bad, like, it's not like these guys are Tom Brady where they can take a vacation for months and show up at the 2 days before the third preseason game and be ready to go for the season. No, these guys are young. It's a new offense. They need reps. They need practice. They need game time. They need a lot of things. So, um, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this ends up unfolding and how they handle the situation. But it's certainly a concern when your offensive line, like, so for example, throughout the entire training camp, the entire preseason so far, I'd say 90% of the time, the Patriots offense is functioning very well during 7-on-7s when the offensive line is not on the field.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden the O-line hops on the field and the defensive line hops on the field and the shit hits the fan. Like everything goes south. So clearly the offensive line has been the problem. It's just about, okay, how can we fix this? How can we get these guys ready before week 1 to where we're firing on all cylinders and our offense can live up to its potential? Because we got a bunch of talent. It's just talent's not the problem this year. It's the functionality of this offense and this O-line working together to create positive plays.
Yeah, and I don't think the reason the offensive line's struggling so much is because our defensive line is just that good. Now, if that's the case, then I'll be very happy. And maybe Christian Barmore is just a top 5 defensive tackle right now. And, we're already expecting big things out of him, but maybe he's just, a massive, mismatch and problem. And Devon Godshaw is playing a lot better. And, Judon's back to his week 1 through 10 self. Maybe that's the case, but we won't know that until we get him against, an offensive line that we consider is, playing good football. And I don't think that that's the Patriots right now and stuff. So we'll see how that is in the last preseason game and then going into the Miami game. But if you're telling me our offensive line's struggling because our defensive line's just that good, I'd be oh, okay, well, they'll figure it out. But I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like we have a pretty middle of the pack mediocre defensive line, which I think it's better than what it's been in the past, but it's still not an elite defensive line like you're talking with the Raiders with Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, guys like that can just do it individually on their own snap after snap.
Yeah, and I mean our D line has been better than I thought it would be so far. That's been really good. But I'll have you touch on this question from our future special guest in a couple weeks here. Past discuss. He says, in terms of Bill Belichick and giving him the benefit of the doubt, how much does that influence your feelings on their recent struggles? And is that an excuse to not panic over these recent concerns? Good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's loaded because I feel like I give Bill the benefit of the doubt coaching on the field. I have no I don't want to say he's a terrible GM because I think he's made some really good decisions, but more often than not, he makes the head scratching ones that a lot of the times are, left like, what was he doing? You just heard the other day, the Bills traded their backup guard for a 5th round pick. That's the exact same return we got for a top 5 guard in the league in Shaq Mason. And then nothing against Cole Strange because I love the player, but reaching for him in the 1st round, maybe something that bites us in the butt in the next couple of years. You saw the 2019 draft class. That draft class was like historically bad. So as a GM, I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. As a coach, I don't think we can judge him because last year, there's no way that our team should have made the playoffs and went on a run that they did without the coaching that we had. Now, I think Josh McDaniels is a huge loss, but I think Bill Belichick is that good of a coach, that good of a game planner, that good of a, team builder on the field that until I see that this team is just not functioning and they're 4-13 at the end of the year, I just don't know. I don't think that I can say that, Bill Belichick's out of it and that he doesn't have it. Now, does that mean that I don't have concerns? Because I feel like my concerns aren't with Bill Belichick. My concerns are with Joe Judge as a play caller, Matt Patricia as a play caller, what their roles are on the offensive side of the ball, and how the players that they're coaching are developing. So I'm not doubting Bill Belichick. I'm almost doubting the other coaching staff, but then again, that kind of reflects on him because he's the one that brought them on. So,
That's exactly what I was just going to say.
That's the concerning part is as a coach for players, he's great. As a guy that's hiring coaches, we'll see how that is.
As a, like you, I agree with most everything you just said there. As a coach on the field, his ability to plan a defense, run a defense, a game plan, whatever, he's the best in the business. I have extreme confidence in him. As a GM and decision maker, I don't give him the same benefit of the doubt anymore because he hasn't proven that in the past however many years. Like Tom Brady makes up for a lot of things. I'm not on the hate Bill Belichick train. I have a lot of confidence in him, but he just has made so many head scratching decisions over the last few years that make it tough. Like you just said, okay, yeah, is my concern with Belichick coaching? No, but is my concern with the coaches he brought in instead of bringing in a guy like Bill O'Brien or having a plan in place for knowing McDaniels is going to be fielding head coaching jobs? Like, it's just the lack of preparation is so unlike him. And you're telling me that his plan all along was, oh, we're going to have Joe Judge and Matt Patricia be our offensive play callers. And like, no, that's not. And if it is, then my confidence in him is even worse. But I'm a little less forgiving of Belichick than it seems you are, Jace. I have a little more concern just because we haven't really seen it without Brady yet. We'll see how it goes in terms of his cap management, in terms of the things he's not willing to do that other GMs are, that lets them compete and move the cap around and be better in current years and move the cap further down the road, whatever, like stuff like that. He's weird about certain things, and it's frustrating because you see other teams doing all these things and being able to sign these players. And we have like zero cap this past offseason when we have $100 million next year that we could have moved it into and been more competitive this year. But it's just, I don't know, just weird stuff like that. But like you said, last year, the amount of wins we got, Belichick had a huge part in that. And then even the Cam Newton year, like that team was god awful. Yeah. And the fact that we were 7-9 or whatever we were was a miracle. And I think that had a ton to do with Belichick. So as a coach, Belichick's the greatest. I don't have any concerns or doubts necessarily, but as a decision maker in general and a GM, I definitely have my concerns and reasons to panic.
And I love Bill. I think he's the greatest coach of all time, like you said. But if someone's holding a gun to my head, and I hate to, bring this up, but I feel like without Brady, the Patriots would not have had 6 Super Bowls. Now, that doesn't mean Bill Belichick's not a great coach, and probably without Bill, Brady doesn't have 6 Super Bowls. But a lot of the deficiencies that we're seeing in the Patriots now were covered up with Tom Brady. He could bring guys in on cheaper contracts like Bill wanted. He took pay cuts so they could pay other players. He was that type of player, leader, quarterback on the field that he made a team go from about 7-9, like the Cam Newton years, to 13-4 and then winning a Super Bowl. Like there were a lot of teams that the Patriots didn't have the most talent on the field, but with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, they were able to push through a lot of things and able to, overcome a lot of their deficiencies. And now without Tom Brady, you're looking at this Patriots and you're like, gosh, this is, similar to what the Patriots had with Tom Brady. Is they had a pretty strong run game, but without a great quarterback and without great pass catchers, which I think we have a lot better pass catchers than what we have, but we've never had a wide receiver one. Where does that get you? Without the greatest quarterback of all time and the same offensive scheme and the same, offensive mentality and ways of managing a team, does that get you to Super Bowls? Probably not. And so I think Brady was able to maybe hide a lot of Belichick's GM management type of flaws that he had. And then on the field, when Brady and Belichick, made a name for themselves, that's where they succeeded. And that's why they were so good together. But if you're telling me that Bill Belichick's record without Tom Brady 70-79, that's about what we've seen the last 2 years without Tom Brady. But all of a sudden you add a Tom Brady on a team that is probably run and coached the exact same with Belichick. All it takes is, one great player like Tom Brady. So maybe Brady did mask a lot of Belichick's deficiencies, but that doesn't mean I don't think he's a great coach. Because like you mentioned, that 2019 team with Cam Newton, or that would have been 2020 team with Cam Newton, no way they should have had 7 wins. But for Patriots fans and for us, that's not what we're used to. 7 wins is not what we're used to seeing. So,
yeah. And good question here from Mike. What was the reason for the offensive switch and Shanahan's style? Is it help the coaches or the players? I think it's supposed to help mostly the players. Maybe the coaches a little bit to help. Maybe it makes it easier for the coaches to help the players. But I think the players, it just seems like in the college game has moved so far away from what the Patriots kind of want to do and what they've done in the past that you see these wide receivers, rookies or just young players in general, not really having any understanding of what the Patriots are trying to do. And it takes them a lot longer to get integrated. So this new scheme is supposed to help guys like Taekwon Thornton, like a N'Keal Harry in his rookie year, like a new guy in Devontae Parker, or when Nelson Aguilar last year, Kendrick Bourne, Jonnu Smith. Like, it's supposed to help all these guys understand things better and faster and be able to contribute earlier on in their contracts with the Patriots. So that's the reasoning behind it. That's what they've said, at least. We'll see how it works out. I know Belichick also is a fan of the zone scheme because he knows it puts certain stresses on the defense and makes things tough for them. So that's obviously another reason he obviously thinks it's going to be successful. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I felt like with the improved weapons from last year, if they just did the same thing, ran the same offense and just had the improved weapons, I don't see why this wouldn't be the right thing to do. But maybe he's preparing this team for the future. Maybe he's preparing for life after Belichick. Maybe he thinks this is going to be something that's going to be easier. And once he's gone, that the system's going to be gone. So maybe he's trying to make that transition now and install it the right way. Who knows? Like, you never know Belichick's intentions behind things, but hopefully it works out, because I'm not trying to see the Patriots go 3-0 for the first 10 weeks of the season, every play, and have to rely on our secondary full of Jalen Mills and some rookies and young guys, pretty much. So we'll see.
Yeah, a zone scheme team does put a lot more pressure on the defense than a gap scheme. And with what you've seen New England kind of draft, they want to go athleticism, they want to go speed. That fits a zone scheme. You look at the 49ers and their style offense, Deebo Samuel, Raheem Mostert, athletic, fast dudes that can get out on the edge. They can crease holes. They can get up through gaps and, get vertically with their foot in the ground. And then you look at Ramondre, Pierre Strong, and maybe Damian Harris. That's why I don't think New England's going to pay him. And I just don't think he fits what they want to do, is I don't think he's a zone type of runner. So, I think that's just what they're going to. They want to add more speed to their offense. That's something that we saw with Taekwon Thornton, Pierre Strong. Heck, even Cole Strange is one of the most athletic linemen in the draft. So they wanted, with every position, not just offense, they wanted to add athleticism, speed, and that's what they did in the draft. And then you add a guy like Ty Montgomery, who can do a lot of different things. I think they wanted to change the offensive philosophy and get to, maybe what's more of the end now style with the NFL, because a lot more teams are running zone schemes. You can't, look at the teams that have a true fullback on the roster. It's not very many, and an elite fullback too. There's not very many in the NFL. So I don't know exactly why it was, but I know that they wanted to do this and they wanted to add more speed to their team, and they did it. And right now it's, a head scratching decision, and you're wondering if they're going to be able to succeed with this. But then again, that's another one of those things, is let's visit this topic in a year once we've seen 17 games under our belt, and we have it fully clicking, because this is a new scheme for everyone in that facility. So probably even the coaches too.
Yeah, it's funny because the team they're changing their system to has an elite fullback, and that's kind of like you mentioned, the Niners and stuff.
They almost just use him as a second tight end, though. When you think of him and Kittle, like it's almost the same thing.
Like Jonnu almost.
Exactly. Put Jonnu and Hunter on the edge, and now you just have one of the best run blocking fullbacks in the history of the NFL, and he's just running wide zone, and he's athletic, and he can catch the ball in the backfield, and he's a threat. So Kyle Juszczyk is a very, very big mismatch, and they just use him almost as a second tight end in their offense.
So you're drafting him first in our fantasy draft this year if you get the first pick? Juszczyk?
Yeah.
I remember that. I just was wondering.
You're gonna hold me accountable for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of touch on what we want to see from the Raiders not from the Raiders, from the Patriots Raiders game
Yeah.
on Friday. Like you mentioned, I just want to see the starters out there for a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half. And in joint practice tomorrow, we'll kind of get a good sign of what's to come, I guess. I don't know. The whole offense thing is just, you've seen players voice their frustrations publicly a little bit, not as much publicly as privately, but you've heard a lot of Mac Jones has had his frustrations. Kendrick Bourne, like, he just had a career year last year. He doesn't want the offense to change. These guys just got comfortable with whatever was going on, and now everything's changing. It's just, I just don't want this to be a thing where the locker room was so great last year. That's part of what allowed them to go on that 7-game win streak, was the camaraderie, how close they were. They all had confidence in the system and what they were doing. So I don't know. It's the reason for change is a curious one, but hopefully, this week on Friday, the starters get some good playing time. They can kind of get things figured out, work out some things, build some confidence and some momentum to go into week 1. But I just hope that this team, by halfway through the season, we're like, okay, this offense is better. It took a little bit to get comfortable, but this offense is on the better track than they would have been if they stayed with their old system. And this team is going to be built for success for the future as well, and integrating players and becoming athletic. And this is the way of the future. So I hope that's what our mindset is during the middle of the season, and not, oh my God, why are we in this? We can't block anybody. Everything's a disaster. We're 2-6 or whatever. And like I hope that's not what we're doing in 2-3 months from now, but time will tell. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's the last game to clean everything up, and I don't think everything's going to be cleaned up. New England's not going to play this game and then come out week 1 against Miami and just be flawless. And I've always talked about this. You want to peak at the right time. You don't want to peak week 1. And I think New England peaked a little early last year, even though they went on a 7-game win streak. But you saw them; they ran out of steam, after the bye week. So clean things up, just make it look crisp. You don't have to go out and win the game by 40 points, but make it look crisp. Get the offense some confidence going into the game, or going into week 1, especially when you're starting in Miami, where you've struggled the last 4 years, and it's a divisional opponent, and they've gotten a lot better on paper with the additions they've made. Just get some confidence going. I mean, this is a long season, and we're in it for a long haul, but you got to get confidence flowing. I feel like right now, from where New England started camp at to where they are now, there's a lot of people in the organization too, that probably a lot of players, like you mentioned, Kendrick Bourne and stuff, they're like, holy crap, like this is going to suck. But get them confidence, get them feeling like they're going to be able to compete this year, and, just let them go play football. That's the thing, is these guys are professionals. Let them go play football. Let them go do their thing. Don't put too much stress on them. Don't be, overreacting, I should say, week 3 of the preseason. Let them go play football. We'll see where they are in 8 weeks. And then if they're still horrible in 8 weeks, then we'll panic and we'll say, what went wrong here? What was it? An offensive scheme thing? Was it the talent of players that Bill brought in or drafted? Is it, the coaching staff, what it is? But give it 8 weeks. Let's see what they do these next couple weeks before the season, in both practices, preseason games, OTA, stuff like that. And then we'll see how it plays out. So I'm honestly excited. Like, I think that it's really exciting to see a team like New England that has a lot of talent on their roster come together. Like, it's going to be real fun if New England starts clicking around week 7 or 8 and they make a run like they did last year and then finish it off strong. Like, think of how fun it was last year. And I think we have more talent this year on the offensive side for sure. Probably not on the defensive side, but think of how fun it's going to be if New England figures this out and they're making a run for the AFC East, or maybe even a wild card spot. Like, it's fun playing meaningful football in October, November, December, games like that where they mean stuff for playoff races. It's no fun being 3-4. So yeah, for our sake and for the podcast sake, we better hope that they're competing, because it's going to be real boring and real sucky to come on here every Sunday if they just keep getting their asses kicked.
Yeah, so hopefully we don't have to deal with that. But let's touch on this real quick, just super quick, because we kind of forgot to mention this. Week 2 stats: Mac Jones went 4 for 8, 61 yards passing. Most of that came on that one throw to Aguilar, and then a guy I don't think he could have thrown that any better. It was perfect. It was perfect. Yep. he was a little shaky on the first couple drives. He kind of misplaced a couple throws, and then he throws that perfect deep ball, and it's like, oh wow, okay. So that was kind of odd. He missed a couple of short throws and whatever. Receivers had some drops in training camp today. I saw quite a bit of drops listed on the 11 on 11s and whatever. So that's not great. But one guy who did step up in this, preseason game was Lil Jordan Humphrey. He has stepped up not only as a receiver, a big body receiver / maybe even a tight end. People have kind of touched on, but on special teams. I mean, he made that tremendous play on special teams.
Yep.
This guy every week looks more and more like he's going to have a spot on this roster. And maybe he's a guy who can step up and fill in the wide receiver depth while Thornton's out, because he's probably going on IR, right? Missed the first 4 games at least. So Lil Jordan Humphrey is a guy who stepped up along with the D line. They created some good pressure. I know it was playing versus their backups, but Judon, Uche, Dietrich Wise, a couple of the interior guys, I think Roberts and a couple other guys created some pressure. So Anthony Jennings, he was in the backfield a few times. He almost got that safety, and then they ended up getting a touchdown instead of the safety. So a couple guys were really creating havoc back there in the backfield. This defensive line has been a lot better than we expected, and they're going to have to be if this defense is going to be a top 15, top 10 defense throughout the season, because they're not going to be able to rely on the corners forever.
Yeah, it's just we have good corners and corners that I thought, or that I think are playing a lot better than what we thought. But this is no J.C. Jackson, Stephon Gilmore combo. This is not a top 10 cornerback or secondary in the league. Safeties are very good, but you're not going to continually win games leaving these corners on an island. So you've got to find some sort of pressure. That's why I think Barmore's going to have a huge year this year. We need someone, like we mentioned earlier, to step up in the front 7 other than Judon. And we need Judon to get back to his old self. Like, we need him to play like his early self last year, who was, getting pretty much a sack a week, if not 2, and just dominating in the opponent's backfield, getting to the quarterback. So, yeah, it's something that was good to see from the defensive side. And I think that, seeing the amount of takeaways that New England's had in the first 2 preseason games. Schooler had an interception last week. Sean Wade, he had forced fumbles from both Terrence Mitchell and Joshua Bledsoe in the first 2 weeks. So you're seeing takeaways from the secondary, and that's a big thing also, taking the football away, giving our offense extra possessions, especially if they're going 3 and out. And it's something that I did not expect right now, but I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's surprising to me that the defense is playing better than the offense right now. And you're almost looking at that saying this might be what wins us a couple games early in the season is, because the defense is, playing pretty well for our expectations.
I hope so. I hope they overperform, because the offense is underperforming. So
yep,
we need somebody. Question from Light Shadows: did anybody pick up Flowers? If not, is it too late to get him on the roster? Nobody has picked him up that I know of. No, it's not too late. You can sign him whenever. Not sure why they haven't done it yet. I'm going to assume they won't if they haven't yet still, but you never know. We both agreed that would be a good signing and a good depth guy to have on that edge, guy who can stop the run. But it looks like our run defense has been great so far. So
yeah,
we'll see how it plays out. I think Flowers would be a good addition to this team. And for a team who struggled with the run last year, I think if you add Trey Flowers to Devon Godshaw, Christian Barmore, Lawrence Guy, Judon, Dietrich Wise, I think that's a great D line. I think that's going to be a really solid D line that'll help us win some football games for sure.
Yeah, I can't believe he hasn't been picked up by anyone. Not just the Patriots, but there's obviously something going on. Maybe New England doesn't want to add him this late, and they had a chance to add him earlier. But yeah, he'd definitely be a guy, especially for a defensive line, that seems to be like there's going to need to be a lot of guys contributing that could come in, bring experience, veteran leadership, a guy that's familiar with the system, and be able to play some significant time and snaps for us, and probably help the defensive line both in the run and pass game. So that's a head scratcher for me. I know we've created cap space, through a couple of moves since the draft, since preseason, or since the offseason. So I don't think he's going to demand a ton of money. He's not going to come in and probably demand a lot, but if you can get him in here on the right price tag, I'm surprised New England hasn't done it. And maybe they have been exploring it, and it's just, it doesn't feel right, or the numbers aren't working out. He wants more, but that's definitely something that I would have thought was going to happen at some point this offseason.
You know who else is a free agent that would help this offense?
Antonio Brown.
OBJ and AB, baby. Let's go.
Bring him back. I heard there's this guy named like Rob Gronkowski too that's in retirement. He might be a good guy to trade for.
No, he just went to the Raiders with Tom Brady.
How crazy was that story, bro?
That was, yeah. I mean, I
Then
remember
Josh McDaniels comes over and is their head coach or something. Like that would have been nuts.
You imagine Brady, Gronk, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro. That's probably better than that Bucs offense was.
Might be.
I mean, that's
Good.
Disgusting.
It's good.
That's definitely better than the Bucs offense.
Gronk probably still. Well, Gronk would have been there, so it would have been Gronk and Waller.
Yeah,
pretty much just put Waller as a receiver and put him and Devontae Adams outside, Gronk down the seam, and Hunter Renfro running the juke routes like Julian Edelman did.
And Josh Jacobs is good too, and they had Kenyon Drake. I know they just
Kenyon Drake,
him, but I don't know.
That was a crazy story.
That was wild. So that's who Brady was talking about when you're sticking with this guy.
Derek Carr.
It was definitely Derek Carr. But I remember when there was rumors about the teams that were interested. I remember the Raiders were one of the finalists that I remembered. Because I remember I made a little post on my phone. This was before I used Photoshop and stuff like that. And it was the Raiders, the Bucs, and one other team that I
was it like the Chargers or Niners? I thought the Chargers were somewhere
something
up
like
there.
That. Something like that.
Brady always wanted to go to the Niners. I don't know how realistic that was, but yeah. The Dolphins seemed a lot closer than we thought it would be. So
trying to steal him while he was playing for us, while he was preparing for them. Probably the same week they were like, "Hey, you want to come here? So go easy on us right now in this next game that we play." Whatever. It is what it is. This isn't a Brady podcast, but I hope I don't know. The longer he plays in Tampa Bay, the more I feel like he's kind of putting this part of his career in the rearview mirror, and I feel like he's not going to come back how we want him to, as far as like retiring here and all the stuff, being as involved as he kind of mentioned he would be earlier. I think that was caught up in the moment. I don't know. I hope he's a part of here for a long time, and I hope he doesn't think that he's a Buccaneer for life because he played there for 3 years when he played here for 20. Like, it's like I don't know. And then all these rumors come out. I just worry that his Patriots, the respect Patriots fans have for him, some of them are going to be frustrated with him, and I don't know if it's not tarnishing his legacy, but like tarnishing his image as from a Patriots fan's perspective if he was talking to other teams, and I don't know. It's just stuff like that is tough to hear, and just that he was willing to go to so many other teams outside of the Patriots. It's like, oh, that sucks, but it is what it is. He's gone. He's been gone for a while. But I hope when it's all said and done, he gives us a nice message and comes back, retires a Patriot. They do the jersey ceremony, red jacket, all that good stuff. I just want to see that and be able to relive the happy memories that I'm grateful that we got because of him and Billy B.
Yes, for sure. So we also forgot to do this, so I'm going to do this real quick right now. Thanks to our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. They're holding the Best Ball Mania right now, and you can draft in that with over $10 million in prizes. It's a $25 entry fee, and it's the easiest place to play fantasy football. You have no in-season management. You get the optimal score each week of the season and have a shot at over $10 million in total prizes in their Best Ball Mania 3 concert. So head to underdogfantasy.com or on the App Store. Sign up with our promo code on the screen in the link below, which is Pat's Drive, and Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. And we just made a fantasy football league, so it's going to be a $10 entry fee now. This is interesting. This is not like any other fantasy league. So it's going to be a 12-team draft. So me and Cole are in it. Once we get 10 more people to join up, it automatically starts. Now, you can't set your day that you're going to draft for Underdog. So each pick has an 8-hour time limit. So you technically don't have to be on right when you make your pick. Now, if you have post notifications on, that probably helps so you know when your pick is. But this is going to be a week-long process, maybe even more than that. And you're going to pick your team. And obviously, we're playing for money. It's over $100 that goes to first place with 12 teams in. And then there's going to be a small prize for second and third. So if you guys use our code Pat's Drive, which is in the description or right here, it technically can only be $5 because they match your deposit. So you put if I in $5, they match the other $5. Pretty much get the entry at 50% off. So we're excited to play with you guys on Underdog. Have a little listener league going on for fantasy. Hope you guys want to join that, and we'll also throw that up on both of our stories after the podcast or in the upcoming days, so you can click on a link straight from there. But again, underdogfantasy.com or on the App Store, use code PATSDRIVE to mark your first deposit and get it matched up to $100. And we'll have a lot more stuff with this coming up. Once we start getting into our pregame show, we'll have a ton of, like pick'ems and over-under picks that we'll be doing through Underdog Fantasy, and you guys will be able to kind of compete with us there. So make sure you deposit your money on Underdog with our fantasy code.
Yeah, I mean, $5 to play a fantasy league, they'll match your deposit, and then $5-10 or whatever, and then play a fantasy league. You get first place, you get $100 or more, and then regardless if you finish in probably top 3 to 4 places, I would assume you at least get your money back.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be super fun. I hope you guys join. Use our code so they match your money, your deposit, and you'll have to deposit less money to join this fantasy entry, and I think it'll be a blast. So make sure you guys join that, and then tag along with us on our betting journey throughout the season. It'll be fun, and whether the Patriots are good or bad, we're going to have some interesting things to talk about and bet on at least. So I think I still have our record somewhere from last year, so we could pull those up and we'll get a clean slate.
We got to improve.
We'll try to be better this year than we were last year, but no, it'll be fun though. I think that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I don't. Patriots play Friday in Vegas, last preseason game. We'll try to keep you guys updated when we're going to go live, hopefully sometime next week. And then once the Patriots play in Miami, we'll be coming with our pregame, postgame show every week, twice a week. And then, occasionally clips whenever we feel needed and stuff. So make sure you guys are looking out for the live stream where we are going to do our predictions, both player prediction, stat prediction, record prediction, everything. So that'll probably be our next live, but that's going to be it. So anything else?
No, I just want you to read this comment, the all caps or whatever from Light Shadows here. Yeah, if you guys enjoy the streams and the clips and all that, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, like the video, all that good stuff. It helps support the channel, helps us continue to grow and produce this content for you guys. So
now, Light Shadows, I don't know if you're into fantasy, but we definitely hope you join our league because you're the number one commenter. No, you're always on here, so we hope you join this fantasy league. We can play with you and have a little fun. And then obviously, I know that we'll see you in all of our other live streams. You're always on here, so you're awesome, man.
He is definitely on here very consistently, the most out of anybody. Mike's been on here a lot too.
Yeah,
shout out to Mike Larry, and then who else? There's somebody else that's been on here a lot. I can't remember, but
I feel like we had a ton of people through the off-season content, the draft process, which is understandable. It's been really slow, and we haven't been as consistent as we were last season and stuff. So, but we're gonna pick that up, we promise you. So tell your friends, spread the word. I mean, this show is a lot better when there's a lot of conversation, and we're never going to, ignore your comments. Now, we do have the option where you can super chat on YouTube now, so you can donate or tip money to us, but we're not going to force you to do that. We're always going to read your comments. We want this to be a Patriots community where you guys can come in, talk to us. We can talk to you, interact, talk Patriots football. That's what it's ultimately all about. So if you guys got any friends or anything that like the Patriots and don't already subscribe, make sure to spread the word. And we'll really appreciate that because we love talking to more people and having those interactions with you guys.
Yeah, and if you don't have any friends, tell your dogs, tell your cats, whatever you got.
No. Just log in on any phone and make 100 different accounts. And no,
but yeah. So yeah, I think with the improved consistency, we'll be back to where we were. And like Jay said, it's more fun when we got you guys commenting your different opinions. We can have fun conversations. It's just at the end of the day, we're watching Patriots games, having fun, and that's what it's all about. So we appreciate all your guys' support. And I think that's all I got. So
we'll end on that right there. We'll end on this with Light Shadows. Boom.
There you go.
This is perfect. So,
all right. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in and commenting. All you guys who stayed for the entire thing, we appreciate all the support, and we will see you guys after the final preseason game on Friday. So we'll probably be back Monday, but we'll let you know.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out patriotsdrive.com for more great content.
We're on to Cincinnati.